Hey y'all, Jason here again from the D2 conferences in Vienna. I'm here with another talk from the D2 Vienna 2018. Here at the D2, we're always on the lookout for artists working outside the field of ArchViz who can educate and inspire us. Sava Zivkovic is one of those people. He's built an impressive reel of work filled with both personal projects and work from big name studios. The bottom line is, watch this talk to see his amazing body of work. Speaking of amazing, how about these high quality cutouts of Fabio, Kristin and myself? The fantastic folks at Visutil took a bunch of great photos of D2 attendees and they've released it as a free collection. Not only that, but they're also offering 20% off all of their high quality cutouts in their online store for a limited time. You can find the link to the D2 collection and to the 20% off code right down there in the description. Once again, thanks for watching. And now Sava Zivkovic speaking at the D2 Vienna 2018. I'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you all for being here. Welcome to the sauna. It's gonna get crazy. Can we dim down the lights? Keep it like really cozy. Again, thank you so much for having me here, and to all the organizers for inviting me. I'm pretty much not gonna talk anything about even related to ArchViz, so I'm sorry for that, I guess. But let's just dive in. Like right off the bat, this title is different to what you have in your pamphlets. And the title of the talk is From a CG Artist to a Director. A more kind of precise translation from that will be something like this, or at least this is how I feel in the last year and what happened kind of in my journey. But as Fabio said, my name is Sava Zivkovic, and whoever pronounces my last name right gets a beer. I'm a director and CG artist from Serbia, and I've done a lot of like various projects over the years, but just in last year, everything kind of made a 180-degree turn when I started working as a director at Axis Animation, which is a studio based in Glasgow. So just as a short overview for what we're going to talk today about, I'm just going to start my timer. This is pretty much going to focus on kind of my journey through personal projects, start off with where I started and break down every personal project I've done and what I've learned from those and how that got me into a director's seat. And then we're going to take a look at one of the projects that I've completed at Axis that we can talk about because most of the stuff is not out yet, so we can't show that, unfortunately. And then we're going to circle around back to where we started with personal projects and like vice versa, like applying the stuff I've learned from Axis to my personal projects and kind of the never-ending cycle of that stuff. Just a quick disclaimer though, like like Fabio mentioned, stage does not agree with me well, so I might stutter, sweat, or swear a lot. So sorry for that, and I probably, this is like very catered towards my journey and how I did things. And it's not necessarily a step-by-step instruction on how to do it. It's just things that work for me, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. And also, if you don't agree with something I say, you're probably right. So we're going to just start off with Act 1, starting out on a journey through personal work. So not a lot of people like know this because I've never posted this stuff online. But so I studied furniture and interior design at Belgrade Faculty of Applied Arts. And I've done a lot of like a natural thing. It's, oh, ArchViz, and that's like an easy thing to transition to. So I've done a lot of ArchViz images. This never saw the light of day online. You can't find this anywhere. But I've done a lot of images over the years, animations and stuff like that. And however fun that was, it still wasn't the thing I was after. I still was more like infatuated by moving images versus stills. So at the same time, I kind of started working with motion design and 3D motion design. And if my slide loads, there we go. So again, like a bunch of boring work I did over the years. It's kind of like, I've learned a lot of things from those, but like ultimately it didn't convey any emotion. It didn't like, it was just like logo animations or iPhone cases with various liquids dripping down and boring stuff like that. But from that whole period of my professional work, I'd say, I've learned a couple of key takeaways. I've learned to model, shade, render. I've learned to animate. I've learned to edit. I've learned to practically be a one-man band. And I've learned to kind of know the entire pipeline of CG production, like to some degree. I wasn't by any means good at any of the specific kind of pipeline steps, but I was kind of aware of the whole process, and that made me kind of be a better freelancing, I guess, better freelancer. So we're gonna, at this point, we're gonna jump into personal projects, and I guess like this is Archivist event. When I talk to other events, like most people don't know this, but I'm guessing a lot of people here kind of saw this stuff. So back in 2014, I did this little short called Case Study. I'm not gonna play this one. I'm just gonna show a couple of images, but it was essentially like a 2.5 or whatever minutes short film, which I did put in air quotes over, but it's this kind of walkthrough thing through Im's house. And this was done for CG Architect Awards, which kind of opened my eyes into this whole world. And came in last that year, but that year got me inspired to kind of push myself into the next one. But the key kind of takeaways from this project was just to kind of combine all my previous knowledge in like whatever I did into creating one meaningful sequence. Again, meaningful is air quotes, because at the end of the day, this didn't have any story to it. It was just like a collage of shots edited together to a track that kind of makes you feel something if you're an architecture geek, which I guess most of us here are. But like broader audience like would be like, oh yeah, like nice renders, I guess. So flash forward 2015, next project, next personal thing, a project called Reconstruct, which actually won the CG Architect Awards. And I actually am gonna play this one because this one was kind of a huge turning point in my career, and I'll talk about it a bit more after I finish playing. But it's essentially a take on kind of combining my motion design work with architectural visualization work into one kind of thing. So I'm just gonna play this for you now, if I manage to do it. Thank you, guys. Sorry about the technical difficulties. One of the key takeaways from this project was audio, and we didn't have it. But just bear with us for 1 second until we figure that out. Because I'm going to be showing a lot of videos, and we need audio.
Can you try and replay that?
Replay it? Yeah, let me just see if that works. Nope. Nope. All right, I'll do my, until Fabio figures this out, I'll do my kind of takeaway from this. Again, like I've done a lot of stuff before, but I never considered working with a composer before. I always just kind of bash things from online resources. But actually, coming to terms and appreciating the fact that working with a composer actually kind of elevates your project beyond what you can ever imagine turned out to be the biggest kind of takeaway in this project. There's a saying that audio and music are 52% of the whole film experience. It's more than the image, and I could not absolutely agree with that more. It's nothing conveys emotion as sound and music does, and if you do that properly and develop the audio with the visuals, which us as visual artists, we tend to stick in this visual field and just look at our images and our renders, but there's this whole other side to it, and once you appreciate to kind of get the best out of that, you can just elevate your projects to an insane heights. And I've never gone back ever since. I've always worked with a composer, and it's one of the biggest lessons I've learned here. The other biggest lesson would be just to kind of, for me, I was always in the technical part of it, trying to make the renders look nice. But I've figured out on this project that the actual pre-production process and actually coming up with the concept and the idea and editing the short film in previous, I enjoyed that way more than the actual kind of production of it. And that was just kind of something to kind of take away from that I still didn't know at this point, I'm gonna end up directing. It's definitely what I wanted to do, but I didn't know it could happen that way. So I just wanted to kind of continue on developing kind of short films. Are we gonna try it again?
Try.
All right. No.
Hold on, let me see if I can.
All right.
With the mic.
I still have a couple of points to go, so. Anyway, at this point, the collaboration started to happen. So for 3D, it was still just me, but I did work with Joel Korolitz on this, who was a composer and sound designer, and he did such an incredible job. And I was a big fan of Joel's work throughout the years, and I could not believe that I could actually get to work with him on something. And you'll see kind of this list grow throughout all the personal projects. So the next one, we better have audio.
In case you could use the interface as well. Is it already installed on your computer?
That look better? All right. I'm actually going to turn it up even more. All right. So the next... Oh, shit. All right, back on track. So next personal project is a bit of a jump. It's called Twitch Loadout, and it was intended to be a title sequence for a friend of mine, a concept artist called Milan Nikolic. And it was intended to be like an intro title sequence to his Twitch stream. And it was done in this one part of our lives when we shared kind of our co-working space, and we wanted to do something different, like myself getting away from motion design and ArcViz stuff and trying a bit more cinematic, game trailery, I guess, stuff. So I'm just going to play this. It's a really short one. And then we're going to talk more. Yes. That's Twitch. Thank you. No need to do that after every video. There's going to be a lot of them. But the thing that happened here, we had the whole thing. I'm not a character animator. I get by most things CG, but character animation I can't do. So the original idea was just to have a couple of close-ups and have this kind of abstract motion, not motion, but title design sequence. But somewhere along the way, we got in touch with this amazing company called Take One. They do motion capture for AAA video games. They're also in Serbia, which is nice. But they were, once they saw what we were after and what we wanted to do, because we had the whole thing rendered out and we had the music done, and then they saw that, and they saw that we could actually do it. They were more than happy to kind of help out and provide motion capture services for us, which was amazing to say the least. This is Milan. This is the concept artist friend, and he was actually playing the character he designed. I think that's kind of a concept artist's dream. But the biggest takeaways from this project is actually like never model a character again. It's hard as fuck, especially if it comes from Milan. But again, like we did this just the three of us. So Iz did the music, I did all the CG stuff, and then Milan designed the guy. And just like realizing that the three friends can do kind of this in their spare time, and just what we were able to learn from this and achieve is quite extraordinary. And it's definitely the best way to grow, to just kind of work with friends to achieve similar goals. Also, in approaching like other people to help on your projects, having a solid starting point is definitely the best way to convince people to join you. Just think about like how many times you were approached by somebody, oh, I had this great idea for a thing, but he didn't even start working on it, and then you're like, I don't even know if should I invest my time in it. But before approaching Take One, they get approached by kids all the time, oh, with grand ideas, we want to do this, we want to do that. We approached them with a solid finished piece that it got their buy-in, that we actually are able to produce this, and we're just not just like, I guess, kids with big ideas. So it definitely helps when reaching out to people for help, just to kind of be as prepared as you can. At this point, the collaborations kind of started to skyrocket. 3D was just me, so we had Milan for concept art, then we had Iz, a good friend of mine as well, for the music and sound design, and then we had Take One for the motion capture. So the next one I'm going to talk about is, this is a stupid one, but I have a stupid point to make. How many of you know what a Yugo is? Not many? All right. If there's somebody who doesn't know, has been born in like 2000s, there's Jeremy to explain.
I would certainly rather walk than ever drive one of these again. It's hard to find a car that's worse than the old Volvo, but I've certainly managed it here.
This, of course, is the Yugo 45, made by Zastava or Zastafer or... I don't know how you pronounce it. What they did with the Yugo 45 was take all the best bits of the Fiat 127 and throw them away. Once they were left with the bag of rubbish, they then got a top Yugoslavian styling guru to come up with this amazing shape.
All right, so I thought Yugo could do with a bit of a a bit of a makeover. So I just did this stupid thing, trying to like learn new techniques. So, thank you. This is a stupid 2 weeks project. The biggest takeaway is just do something stupid every once in a while, and doing projects just for the fuck of it is completely fine. You don't have to always be this serious sci-fi whatever. It's sometimes completely fine to have some fun. Not to say that we don't have fun doing sci-fi, but still. It doesn't have the same impact though, but again, I got the chance to work with Iz again, my composer friend. We got to work for a second time together. Got a chance to try some different kind of techniques between animation and music scoring and sound design and stuff like that. So just got a bit of more projects under our belt. So the next one, this is a big one. This is a biggie. So before I even play this, because it does chew a lot of time, let's just try this. Let's show hands, whoever has seen IFCC main titles, or if anybody knows what I'm talking about. All right, so we're gonna play it. Okay. So just a bit of a background. IFCC is a concept art conference in Croatia, and followed up by our Twitch project, we got in touch with the organizers and we created a 6 minutes full CGI short film that acts as a title sequence, as an opening of the festival. So it's a long one. Relax and just play this. And I hope the playback doesn't stutter. So that was, to say the least, an undertaking. It was, again, a personal project, completely just by 5 of us. Like, I could spend the whole day talking about this. The things that we've learned from this cannot fit into a single slide. But if I had to single out the most important thing I've learned, is just to appreciate the creativity that comes from teamwork. Again, like doing things prior on my own, it's completely different when there's a couple more brains involved. And some of the best ideas and best concepts that came from this short came from the teamwork and came from working together with friends and just kind of working together towards the same goals. We'll probably never have as much fun as this again. This was a child of ours. At this point, the collaborations, again, expanded slightly. So we had Mihailo and Nenad, good friends of mine for school. They helped out with the assets. Mihailo made the character, Nenad made the spaceship. We had Milan for the second time designing all the crazy stuff. We had Iz killing it on the music. This was our 3rd collaboration together. And then we had Take One for the 2nd time. And it's kind of like, it's still similar, but it's kind of the connections you have with the people who are growing because you are on with them for another project. And Take One was like sort of amazed with what we did with Twitch, that they wanted to help out with this project as well, which could not happen without their help. So I'm like immensely in debt to them. After this project, everything kind of switched. That's why I started working with Axis Animation. If you don't know who Axis is, we're a studio based in Glasgow, London, Bristol, focusing on AAA game cinematic, game trailers, and visual effects for film. But more on that later. After that, a project you might have seen is this one. And I'm actually going to play this one, and I have a very simple point to make with him. So this was last year's CG Architect nominee, and again, I was lucky enough to actually win last year's as well. So I'm gonna play this. It's fairly dark. Thank you. So this one was, again, dialing back into the ArcViz world and kind of combining it with motion design again and seeing if there's something in simplicity rather than this kind of elaborate exteriors and whatnot, and just kind of going more abstract. And then it turned out fine. But the biggest takeaway here, the biggest point I want to make is just make the most of your free time. Most of the people don't know this, but this project, Icons, was made while like somewhere in a midpoint where I was working on IFCC. So for IFCC, I took pretty much a sabbatical from work to be able to finish that project. But there was a point where I could not continue on with the production because I was waiting for Mika and Nana to finish up the models because of their work relationships. So I had like a month off, and I've already taken a time off from work to work on that. And rather than just sit on my ass, I thought it'd be fun like to do something with that time. So actually, that's where Icons came to be within kind of the larger project that I was doing at the time. And that's just like sometimes life just happens, and you need to be able to kind of fully utilize your time and not just like mope, I guess. At this point, this was the fourth collaboration with Iz, so at this time, like we're really starting to think alike, starting to kind of know each other's tastes and how we kind of tackle different things. But there was an interesting point with this project as well, is usually like you do your edit and then the sound designer and composer will score the thing to the edit. But I wanted to try a different approach entirely for this project. So I had a rough structure, what was gonna happen in Icons. But I just rendered out a bunch of like random renders, and I had a structure in mind, but everything else was done to the music. So Iz did the music towards my style frame, so that's what informed the tone of it. And then when he finished up the track, I then edited all of my shots to that track. And that's like something that usually never happens in production, but it's like one of the fun things you can experiment with when doing personal projects, and I'm really glad we got to do that. Speaking of Iz, the next project is for him, with him. It's a very short kind of ident, kind of an intro thing to his music and sound design. But I'm not going to show you the project because it's fairly short. I'm going to show you the process behind the scenes, whatever, making of video. And we're going to do that now. This one was, thank you guys. This one was like a really quick and fun project to do, but the whole point of this project was just to learn how to create matte projections. I knew like a bunch of Photoshop before, but I never actually did a matte projection to get like the actual parallax and stuff. And it's so easier to do environments that way. I would have used this at IFCC so hard. I didn't know it at the time. But like the whole point here is just, again, like doing smaller projects every once in a while gets you kind of to acquire those new skill sets that you can use later on in bigger productions. So if I'm building up towards my next kind of short film, I'm going to do a couple of shorter projects in between to actually kind of build up the skill sets to be able to do larger ones. Again, this was third time with Milan. He designed the spaceship, which was, again, hard to model. Iz did the music, of course, not this stuff, not the bad choice of music that you just heard here. And in the actual ident, he did the music and sound design for that. Actually, just sound design. But that was, again, like this is fifth time working together, so it's kind of like we're kind of mind melded at this point. The next thing I did prior to going on with Axis is this thing called Playgrounds. And Playgrounds is another festival, another art festival in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. They also have a version in Amsterdam. But this was the art department in Eindhoven last year. And I did the opening titles for that as well, which was a direct result of IFCC. And again, I was still like infatuated by short films and not going like abstract motion graphics title design, which is done like over the top. So I thought about the same approach, essentially making a short film. And I'm going to show you the comparison between the previs and the final film here, and I'm going to talk over this. So I'm going to slightly reduce the volume. All right, so it's working. All right. So the point I want to make here is just the importance of previs in large productions. For anybody that doesn't know, previs is essentially the animated version of a sketch. It's really rough animation and blocking and the placement that like gets the overall idea across. It's really rough here. It's flickering like crazy because of Max's crazy interface. But like all the assets used, they're just like SketchUp models, and they're just used there as a placeholder just to get the concept across. Everything later on, once the concept is approved, everything later on is going to get replaced by final assets. Pretty much like this is the crux of it. Like if you are a 3D artist that did a lot of animation and that would like to transition into directing maybe, like this is the skill that you need to exhibit. Directing a project is the stuff on the left. Like that's where your film is made. You see there's some differences in the final piece, but it's 95% there. And if that thing on the left works, your final piece is gonna work 10 times better when you have everything nicely produced. So that's usually where all the work is done, especially now with Access. It's kind of the first month is very intense of laying down all the choices and doing the previs and locking the color script. Everything after that is just production. And no matter how much I still like doing production and I still like doing renders and stuff like that, not modeling, it's still, like, to me, it's nowhere near as fun as actually kind of coming up with the concept in the first place. So yeah. Again, thank you guys. Again, like the biggest takeaway here is just truly appreciating the importance of previs. It's what, if you have that established early on, it's what saves the production later on. I'll talk about the importance of 2D animatics and storyboards when I go to the Access project, but this one, since I'm doing this on my own and I am more proficient in actually doing 3D previs than 2D, this was my choice for this one. Also, I've learned that people ripping off your work is a mixture of feelings, but I'm not gonna talk much more about that. Maybe later. Got to work with Echoic this time. Amazing guys from Bristol. They did the sound and music for this short. Again, same with Joel. Like I was a huge fan of their work, and just getting to work with them was just an experience in itself. So yeah, so finally we are at Act 2, and this is the first AAA project with Access. And some of you might know this, it's out, it's so we're gonna circle way back into personal projects and again applying what I've learned from Access this time around. And we're gonna talk a little bit about this little thing I made just recently called Bounty Hunt. I don't know what the general consensus in the room is about the new Star Wars films, but I'm not a fan. I'm like probably the biggest fan in this room from Star Wars, but the new films I just could not stomach. And rather than kind of, and I do agree, I do understand why they're made in the way they are made, but just like, I was so disappointed with episode 8 that I needed to do something about it. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole and just complain constantly online, and there's a more creative way you can use, I guess, the pain and make something good with it and actually learn something. So I did this small project where I wanted to learn something new and I wanted to say goodbye to Star Wars. So I did this, and we're gonna turn up the audio quite a lot. go. So that was. Thank you, guys. That was my little love letter to Disney. It's again like just using your energy in more creative ways. Apart from complaining, constantly complaining, actually doing something about it can actually provide to be fairly useful. What I wanted to do here is just essentially learn Substance Painter and implement it in my own pipeline. Again, seeing how they do things at Axis, where like working on my own personal projects, I would just like make things with what I have, make do with what I have, and just kind of cheat my way around like heavy productions. But seeing that every single asset at Axis gets properly sub-D modeled, UV unwrapped, textured, that did a ZBrush pass on everything, it just brings that much more realism. And I wanted to try that on my personal project, and I actually did that here. Everything is properly modeled, UV'd, did a ZBrush pass for additional detail. And I think it's important, like there's a subtle difference when you compare this to my previous work, but it is important to note that there's this like curve in CG that like the first 90% of like getting an image to look realistically is like fairly easy to establish, at least these days. I mean, you just fire up Octane or V-Ray and right off the bat, by default, it looks like decent, it looks good. But it's that last 10% of getting the actual realism in that takes the most and takes the longest. And it's this adding like small details like this in ZBrush and all the details in Substance Painter is something that you might not pick up on cognitively at least, but like you could, like your subconscious or your mind picks up on. Like it's when looking at an image when you're not sure like what's wrong with it, but you know something is off. It's because it's missing all of those little subtleties that like you're used to seeing in every day, but you're just missing in CG. So it was fun experimenting with that. It was a lot of work, but it was fun. Substance is awesome. Worked with this amazing person here, Soren Zaragoza. He modeled Dash Render, that guy. He's an amazing concept artist and sculptor, and I met him at IFCC last year, and like we wanted to work together, and we got to do this. So the biggest kind of point here, this was done somewhere towards the end of Destiny project, and I wanted to just pretty much, when I did my personal projects earlier in the day, I always kind of took my time with them, and I took time off to do them. But I wanted to see if I could still produce personal work while I'm like working on multiple AAA productions. And it turned out that you actually can. It just takes a while longer. But taking time off after work or working off hours, bit by bit, day by day, you eventually get there. And it's just, again, the biggest kind of like, just keep growing. You need to keep learning new tools, keep learning new software. Even though you might have gotten like the director's chair, it's not like, you cannot let that comfort zone seep in and take over. You need to constantly be pushing yourself, constantly keep pushing for working with new artists and constantly, essentially, learning. And yeah, butthurt by Star Wars. At this point, again, Soren came on board. I had Iz work on the music for this 6 collaboration. I fucking love what he did there, and that's sort of the endish of our journey. So I'm gonna do a little recap here and kind of go through all the points made and distill them down in one slide, one convenient slide. So if you want to do this stuff, start small. Start small with, I'm gonna read it out. Start out small with projects you can complete just by yourself and slowly build up from there. Don't go for the insanely ambitious thing as your first short film. This stuff takes time and it takes confidence to finish up. Start with something that you know 100% you can do by yourself with the skills that you already have. And then slowly build from there. Slowly start to learn new skills that will enable you to do different projects, and then slowly expand into contacting other people to join you. With contacting other people, just try to produce as much of the work as you can prior. It'll help get their buy-in. This is like a screenplay 101, but people will trust your actions more than your words. It's life. You can talk all you want, but people are not who they say they are what they do. So it's pretty much the same thing here. It'll be just way easier to get somebody on board when you've convince them that this is something that you actually are making and not just something that you want to make. Invest time in working with friends. It might not be all sunshine. Sometimes life happens, but growing together is the best way to go. Like a fun story with Iz, he actually worked as a music guy years back with like local artists. But then he like abandoned that career because the market went under, and he did like graphic design for 10 years. And we shared that co-working space. He was a graphic designer, and once I did Reconstruct and hired Joel to do the music, he was like, "Dude, I can do this. Like, you just paid a guy, and like I could do this." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he showed me like his old music stuff. And I was like, dude, like, why are you doing fucking graphic design when you can do music like this? And it's just like he wasn't aware of the whole animation thing. But then we started working together. It took some time, like, I'll be honest, it took some time to get on the same page in how we do things. But at the end, it's worth it because now we're like 8 projects in, and we're literally like a well-oiled machine, I guess. Like we understand each other incredibly well, and we know what we want to do. So it's the investment in time is like, it's important. Be open to other opinions and ideas of varying sources. Don't get too stuck within your own stubborn way of seeing things. Again, that comes back from IFCC. It's fine to hold your project, like I don't want to say it to yourself, but you are the one who started it. But you definitely need to be open to other ideas. It's when best things happen is just collaborating with people. Exercise patience. This may be going through like some of the younger guys out there. Even with faster render engines out there, your style and your actual skill set still takes years to develop properly. This is like all the guys copying people on Instagram. Like, sure, you can do the thing, you can copy somebody's work if you want to learn the tools, but then you still need to like develop your own style. And I will say so, like that's a common thing, and I hope I don't offend anybody here by saying this. It's a common thing in ArcViz as well. I mean, Alex Roman did this amazing thing, and I copied Alex Roman with my case study project. I did the exact same thing, just not the split screens. But it's like after a while, after you've done that, after you've learned the skill set, like, yeah, sure, you can try to do something a bit different with it, because you're essentially just doing the same thing over and over again, and it's honestly, in all honesty, it's boring, and that was kind of the takeaway, I guess, from there. Again, use short projects as a means of acquiring new skill sets. They're also a great way to get out of a creative rut, because you sort of get to see results fast. Practice clear communication. You'll use it a lot if you do eventually get to a similar position, like at Access. Like you don't like. All your 3D skills aside, you'll never touch 3D. Like all you do is communicating to the team and delegating what needs to be done. And that becomes your kind of primary skill set you're gonna use. And lastly, again, getting that dream job is great, but never give up on personal projects. It is the single most important asset you might have as a creative. It's the stuff that defines who you are, and that's what gets you hired at the end. This will transition a bit into me rambling, but it's also the point of it worked out for me because I was after the more creative aspects of the project. If you get stuck into like the rendering aspect of it, it's like renders are getting easier and easier by any minute now, and they're already pretty easy than like in comparison when I started, and. Like, what makes the difference then when everybody can make a realistic image? You have to be able to give out more than the image, the meaning of the image, or the animation, or what's behind it. That's what's going to be the primary skill set you might have, because everybody's going to, like 10 years from now, everybody's going to be able to do this on the phone. So you need to kind of branch out into different creative aspects of image making. Bonus round. I didn't announce this one, but we have an interesting thing now. We can't record this either. It'll come out soon. But did any of you guys hear about Kitbash? Kitbash 3D? Yeah. All right. Cool. So yeah, there we go, Mike. I recently completed this kind of flagship video for Kitbash 3D, which is going to be released sometime September, I guess, but we did get permission to showcase it here. So this is like a D2 exclusive. Nobody has seen this before. So I'm just gonna, this is usually where I end my talk, but we do have some time to actually play this, so I'm gonna do that now. And that's actually it. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for keeping, thank you for the patience. If any of you would like to contact me ever, this is all my stuff. You can take a photo of this. Just if you have any questions whatsoever, please write. I'm fairly, I guess, decent with responding, or just find me here. I will be here around for both days, and whatever you have, whatever you want to ask, just feel free. Don't be shy. I want to help out as much as I can. So thanks again. Cheers.